Well, howdy there, folks. Glad you stopped by today for a visit. Won't you come on in and sit a spell? If you all gather around, well, I'll spin you a yarn, tell you some whoppers, and we'll stretch the blanket till she almost rips. First, I should tell you that all my friends call me Old Man Mac. Now, the Mac part, that comes from me man, me pap's last name. And the old man part comes from, well, now, if you look at my picture there in my website, I guess you'll agree that the proof is in the pudding. Well, anyway, on to a story. One day, long time ago, me and my old Uncle Horace was a-fishing on the Green River down around the Mammoth Cave area, right here in Kentucky. We had us a small boat that we would row upriver and then float back downriver, fishing the whole time. Now, sometimes we'd spot some wildlife on the riverbanks, maybe a raccoon, a fox, or a possum. If we were really lucky, we'd see a mama bear with her cubs, or a deer with her fawns. On a rare occasion, we'd see a snake swimming across the river in front of our boat with his old head poked up out of the water. But I remember this one day in particular, while we were rowing our boat upstream, that a big old grizzly bear came down to the river for a drink. Now, this was special, you see, for once in a while we'd see a black bear on the riverbanks, but never a full-grown grizzly. Wow! Now, while he was getting his drink, great big old catfish made the mistake of swimming too close to the riverbank, and the grizzly bear, he spied it. And he reached down with that long bear claw of his and scooped up that old catfish. That old catfish probably weighed all of 25 pounds. That old bear scooped him up and threw him up off the riverbank like he was nothing at all. I bet that old bear was a-thinking, here I come down to the river for a drink, and ended up with dessert. Now, wouldn't you know it, sometimes we travel up and down that old river for days at a time and never spot a bear or a critter of any kind. But on this day, not only did we see the grizzly bear catch a catfish, but along came another big old grizzly bear down to the river, every bit as big as the first one. Now, he came down to the riverbank a-growling and a-fussing and making like he was going to take that catfish away from the one that caught it. Then the grizzly that had caught the catfish, he stood up on his hind legs and he growled, "Rawr!" And both bears commenced to fighting like two old tomcats. Tell you, fur was a-flying everywhere, and growling like you never heard before in your very life. I knew I had to do something quick, or them bears might hurt themselves. About that time, would you believe that old catfish, he flopped himself back in the river and swam away to safety. That seemed to make them two bears even madder when they saw their dessert swimming away. Well, sir, after the catfish escaped, them two old grizzlies started fighting with each other again, and bear fur was just a-flying. Now, folks, to this day, I don't rightly know what would have happened if I hadn't jumped out of that boat and, oh, shucks. Now, I see our time together is about up, and I don't have time enough to finish our story. So if any of you folks would maybe like for me to pay a visit to your family, your friends, your church groups, your schools, clubs, or business associates, give me a call or drop me an email. I'll be happy to stop by and either finish the story about them two big old grizzly bears or tell you a story about my favorite family, Pap and Mam Scrunchkin, and their three little scrunchies. Or maybe the story about the mama bear and her two baby cubs. Or how about my Uncle Horace and me going prospecting for gold down in Muhlenberg County. If we have time, I could tell you a fairy tale or a ghost story, a cowboy yarn, or maybe the story about the great steamboat race on the mighty Ohio River. Well, like I said, I got to go for now, but I would like to leave you with this little jingle that I wrote just for you. I'll tell you a story if you gather round, a fairy tale or fantasy. Climb the highest mountain, swim the deep blue sea. I'll tell you a story if you gather round me. Leprechauns, a pot of gold, stories you heard, some never been told. Ghosts and goblins in a haunted barn. Gather around and listen, and I'll spin you a yarn. So y'all give me a call or write me real soon now. You hear?